All right, it is 3:01, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. If you just popped into our webinar, please go ahead and go to formative.com to get logged in. And if you haven't ever logged in before, or maybe you don't have an account, you'll go ahead and click that sign up button right there to sign up for your free account as we get started here. All right. A little bit about me before we start. My name is Jessica, and I'm an implementation specialist here with Formative, and I used Formative in my classroom every day. And I taught elementary school, and I used it specifically with kindergarten. So I became really familiar with a lot of those adaptations and different features that exist to make Formative accessible for learners of all levels. And I'm a dog parent as well, so you may hear some barking in the background. I apologize for that. And I live on a little island up in Washington. And if you hear any barking, it's definitely that guy. So I apologize in advance. All right. A few things to know today. Our webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes. We probably won't need all of that time. And as we go, I'm going to be giving you some time to do the same things that I'm doing. So we'll do a little bit of I do and we do. And please type any questions you have in the chat. We only have 5 people here today. We may have a few more trickle in, but definitely want to get all of those questions answered. So any questions you have, please feel free to pop them into the chat. All right. And here's a few of our learning objectives today. Hopefully you all have gotten logged in already. We're going to be going over how to log into your Formative account, how to create a class in Formatives, as well as how to create a folder to organize your Formatives and materials, as well as start that collaboration process with colleagues who might also be on your Formative team, and how to build some Formatives that you can quickly use with your students, along with all of those assigned settings so that you can get that Formative to function exactly how you want it to for your instructional plans. And we do support some single sign-on options. So if your school maybe uses Microsoft, Google, Clever, you can definitely use one of those single sign-on options as we get started here. And I'm going to go ahead and pop into my Formative account here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So right up on the very top, you're going to notice that we have some tabs in common, and we're going to all be starting on this first tab, the Formatives tab right up top and corner left-hand side. And I'll call this our data dashboard. The reason why is because as you start to get some data from your students, so I'm going to scroll down here past all of my folders, you'll start to see that you have some data popping up. So right up top here on all of these boxes, each of those represents one of my classes. And all along the left-hand side here, I have my folders indicated by that little folder icon. And I also have some individual Formatives. And I can quickly at a glance tell if I have someone collaborating with me on it. Hi, Oksana. I see your chat right there. Unfortunately, it's not translated, so I'm going to go ahead and pop it into a translator on my other screen here. Feel free to, pop in that message possibly to Google Translate so that I can provide you with an answer here. So let me go ahead and pull up Google Translate on my other side. All righty. So when we are looking here at our data dashboard, this is a great spot for a quick reference to see your information. I can quickly see at a glance who my Formatives have been assigned to. And by hovering over any of these icons, I can see how many have submitted. I can see if it's currently set to open or close. And I can also see if I've set those scores to return or not. And I can see quickly maybe which Formatives are not accessible to my classes because I currently have them closed. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with creating a folder to organize your Formatives. Similarly to Google Drive and Google Docs, you can create a shared folder, which in this case is indicated by this little person icon right on top of that folder there. So we're going to go ahead and start by clicking Add Folder. I'll give you a moment to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and name our folder. So I'm going to name mine Math 1 Shared Materials. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Add folder. Now, if you would like to share your folder with a colleague who is also on your team, all you need to do to share a formative folder or a formative itself is click on that bubble and you'll see this bottom bar pop up here. You can then select share, where you'll see our sharing pop up. Now on this sharing pop up, if I want to share with someone on my team, all I need to do is go ahead and pop in their email here. And I can choose what privileges I want to give to my colleagues on that folder, whether I want them to be able to just assign the formatives in that folder, or if I want them to be able to edit and assign those formatives. So you have some flexibility in how you would like that to appear. I'm going to give Erin assign only privileges, and then I would click add. Now, if you have a colleague who maybe has moved on to another school, or possibly you don't want to share that folder with them anymore, or you need to change their privileges, you can do that at any time, or you can remove them by clicking on that little X right there. And I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this panel if you'd like to do the same. A few more things to know on our Formatives tab and our data dashboard. If your list starts to look a little bit long and messy like mine, you can use that search bar to quickly pull up any formatives by just searching for a keyword in that title there. And you can also view your formatives by assigned, unassigned, and you can sort in a few different ways as well to organize it to what works best for you. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pop on to our next tab, and that's going to be our classes tab. Now on the classes tab, the easiest way to get your class into formative is to click roster sync. You can choose to sync your rosters with Google Classroom, Clever, or Microsoft Teams. It's going to automatically import your students, and this is the quickest and fastest way to get your classes into formative. But if one of these isn't an option for you, we're going to walk through how to create a manual class. All I need to do is click New Class. I can then come in here and name my class. So I'm going to name this Kindergarten After School Group. Since I already have my early birds and my morning birds, perhaps, I can go ahead and change that color. I can pick an icon, or I can set a 2-letter abbreviation like you might have seen on my data dashboard. And I can then set my grade, my subject, and you're going to be able to attach it to your organization here. So you'll likely see your school or team's name from this dropdown. For me, I see Formative Academy since that's my school. Once you've selected all that information, you can go ahead and click Create. It's going to immediately bring you to this panel here that prompts you to add students to that manually created class. And you have a couple options. For older students, we recommend having them go to formative.com/join and entering in this code right here. It's going to automatically add that student to your class, so you don't have to add them in yourself. You can also come right in here and type their name. So for example, test, student, and then I could pop my student's email right on here. And if they use one of those single sign-on options, Clever, Google, or Microsoft, I don't need to set a password for them. Another option is if you have a CSV or spreadsheet file of your students' names and emails, you can do a bulk copy paste of first, last, and email to quickly get them on to this pop-up here. And then you can click Add. Now, on any of my classes, I have some management tools available. I can sort in a few different ways, and I can also show my archived classes, and we're going to walk through that in just a second. By clicking on this little square right next to any of my classes, and you can see that this is a Google Synced classroom, indicated by that little G logo, and I have co-teachers on this class, indicated by that little double person logo. I can choose at any point in time to edit those class details if I would like. I can add a co-teacher, and a co-teacher is going to be able to see all data from my class, assign formatives to my class, And any formatives I assign to that class are also going to show up for my co-teachers on their dashboard. So that collaboration is really built in and easy if you're looking for that type of tool. And I also have this clone option if I would like to copy a class. I can lock a class to prevent any more students from adding as a security measure. And you'll see if you have a synced class, you can go ahead and resync that class and update it at any point in time as students join and leave your class. And then at the end of that semester or school year, when I don't need that class anymore, I can go ahead and click Archive. Now, when I click Archive, it's going to put it into a private holding bin shown under that Shown Archived section. All I need to do to get it back, if I want to get that class back, is click that box and click Restore. I strongly recommend this over a hard delete of your class. The reason being is that it's going to sit there for you for however long you need it. That data will always be retrievable, but if you delete a class, that data is gone. So that's why I recommend using that archive tool rather than deleting those classes. And by clicking on any of these boxes for classes right here, it's going to bring me to that little drop down of all of my students in that class. And what's really handy is if I come in here, and for Chandler, if I want to see how he has spent the last 14 days on Formative, all I have to do is click his little box, and then I can click Activity, and I'm going to be brought to a page where I can see Chandler's activity within Formative in the last 14 days, and it looks like he hasn't logged in here. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start building a formative. So if you could click onto your formatives tab right here, and then new formative. We're going to get started with building a formative. Please feel free to use your own questions or examples rather than mine. Mine are going to be really generic, but if you have a question coming up that you want to use in a formative, please feel free to replace my example with your actual question you're planning to use. Now, first thing I need to do is I need to title my formative. So I'm going to go ahead and title my formative, Getting Started with Formative. And you'll see that title updates in 2 spots. And you'll see this very small text right below that says auto-saved less than a minute ago. Because as you're working in Formative, everything is constantly saving. Now, on this big white block, this is what we call our pinned instructions block, and it's going to stay at the very top of that formative for your students. If you click this caret, it's going to drop down to your instructions block, and this is a great space to put any information you want your students to have while they work on that formative. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in my I can statements right here. And you might be noticing this little blue plus. If you click on that, you're going to see a variety of multimedia tools, and these are going to exist in a lot of places in Formative and are great for creating some enhancements and adaptations for students. So if, say, for example, I have some students who maybe aren't on reading level yet, I can go ahead and record myself reading those I can statements. I can then add that audio right in so my students can both read it and hear it. And you'll notice that there's quite a few other multimedia options in here to really enhance that formative to meet the needs of your students. And if you randomize those questions, this will always stay at the top as a great reference point for students on the things they need to be successful. Now, you might be seeing 4 different logos here. I have one just little bubble. We're going to start by clicking that first one, the stacked pages, or if you have a big blue plus like mine, you can go ahead and click on that. This is going to bring you to all of our question and content items. And we're going to start with a really basic question type. We're going to be starting with multiple choice. So I'll give you a moment to go ahead and select that multiple choice question right along with me. Now, a few things on those question boxes. At any point in time, if you need to change that question type, you can use that drop-down menu to quickly switch it up. You can change the point value, and you can even add in kind of half points and decimals if you want. And you can use the 3-dot menu to copy, move, or delete a question. And right where it says type your question, I'm going to get started by typing out my question to my students. Which of these is the state capital of Washington? And Formative is going to auto grade for you if you set the correct answer on it. So in here, I'm going to start by typing out my options for my students. Again, if you have your own question you're actually planning to use with your students, feel free to replace my example with your real question. So our first one here, I'm going to go ahead and put Tacoma, Olympia, Friday Harbor, and Chehalis. And I'm going to go ahead and select that correct answer from my students so that it's going to be auto graded and I'm going to get that data instantly. I can also choose to randomize the options there. I can add a show your workspace if I would like, which is like a big whiteboard for students to show their thinking. And I can also choose to use a rubric. I can also make that question required for my students. And finally, you'll see this tag to standard spot. This is a great place to quickly tag your standards. If my question, say for example, is about main idea, I don't even have to remember that keyword because I can type in main idea right there. It's going to filter all of my standards on my account to pull up the one for main idea. And again, you might be noticing that handy little rich text tool exists right here if you maybe want to have students select from a series of images, audio files, or videos. All right. And again, if you have any questions along the way, please pop them into the chat right there. So we just went over a multiple choice question type. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pop into another question type. But this time, we're going to be choosing a short answer question. So a more open-ended question type. All right. My question for my students today is going to be solve for x. And I'm going to ask them to solve for x plus 5 equals 11. Now, we all know our students are going to give us a wide variety of answers. Some are going to say 6. Some will say the answer is 6. Some might say x equals 6. But all of those answers are still correct. And when I add a correct answer here of 6, Formative is going to look for any answer that has 6 in it and grade it as correct. So if you have multiple answers from students and multiple answers are correct, by turning on Allow Partial Match, any answer with 6 in it will be graded as correct. You can also make that answer case sensitive, add a show your workspace, or make it required if you would like. And I'm going to go ahead and add my standard tag here, and my students are working on addition. So all I need to do is type that keyword, and it's going to filter all of my standards on my account for me to pull up all the applicable standards so I can choose the right one quickly without having to remember those long codes for all of my standards. And we're going to do one final question for our students here, and that's going to be a show your work. So I'm going to click that blue plus again, and I'm going to add a show your work question type. And again, you can add a show your work question type to any of your existing questions right on here, or you can go ahead what I'm going to do, and I'm going to click this edit background option. Now, when you click edit background, it's going to bring you to that big blank space for students to draw. They can show their work in here. They can make a picture. But what I'm going to do as a teacher, I'm going to click that image icon and upload a document for the background. And I'm going to go ahead and add that image in there of an animal cell. You can upload up to 25 pages at a time. They're going to show as cards. And I'm just going to expand that out a little bit so it covers up my doodles. And then I'm going to click that check mark there. Now, I want my students to go ahead and circle the mitochondria. Now we've gone ahead and we've created our formative. I have my 3 questions in here, But let's take a look at what it looks like from the student side. And you can always see what it's going to look like from the student side by clicking on preview right here. And you can see what it's going to look like in an iPhone, an iPad, or a tablet. Looks like my internet's a little slow. We'll give it a second. So let's review. I have my pinned instructions block with my audio file I added in there for students who might need to listen to those I can statements. I have my first multiple choice question for students to answer, and it's auto-graded because I set that answer key of Olympia. I have my short answer question that's going to grade any answer with 6 in it as correct. So because this has 6, it'll be graded correct because I have allow partial match turned on. And for that show your workspace, my students are going to be able to click show your work. They can come right in here, and I'll change that color. They can circle for me. What is the mitochondria? And once they're all done with that formative, they're going to be able to click submit. But the great news is all of those answers are going to show up for you on your view responses tab, even before your student clicks submit. So you can see those live responses. Let's go ahead and click on the assign tab, which is top and center. First thing on the assign tab is you're going to want to select your class or classes you would like to assign to, and everyone will have guest students. Guest students are going to be one-time single-use accounts where they can pop into that formative, answer it, but they're not going to have a regular account that they're going to be logging into. They're just going to enter that join code and pop right into that formative. We recommend it for just one-time, one-off kind of formatives you're assigning to a small group of students, but we don't recommend it for long-term students that you might have in your class where you're going to want to see their progress over time connected to their student account. By toggling on teacher pace mode, you control the pace of that formative, and students can't go on to the next question until you click next. But by clicking adjust settings optional here, you'll see we have quite a few options so that formative does exactly what you would like it to do. You can choose to display each question on a separate page and students click next to progress. You can choose to restrict your formative to individual students. So maybe I only need students 1 and 2 to take that formative today. You can schedule times when that formative is open for students to go in and provide responses. And you can also set a time limit on that formative and even a custom time limit if those preset ones don't work for you. After submission, after students click that submit button, you can choose that they can go back in and edit the formative. You can choose to make it completely hidden, or you can keep it visible, but they can't modify anything. And you have some options for score return too. If you'd like scores to return to students instantly, you can do that, or you can choose to not show scores, or when it's closed or when they submit. And then finally, you can also return those correct answers either when closed, after they submit, or don't show those answers at all. And then you have a couple more options down here. You can choose to display questions in a random order. And if your school has maybe purchased an add-on lockdown browser such as Respondus or that Chrome kiosk mode, you'll see that secure exam browser mode here. If your school or district doesn't have one of those options, you'll just have this set to none. And then you can go ahead and click assign only. Now you'll notice for mine, because I did have a Google Synced Classroom selected, if I click assign and post to Google, it's going to automatically post it to my Google Classroom stream, which is one of those great benefits of doing that roster sync with Google Classroom, Clever, or Microsoft Teams. Now, once you click assign only, it's going to bring you to your view responses screen where you can start to get some answers from students. And you'll see in here from my teacher preview, because I've answered some of those questions, I'll go ahead and show it right here. You'll see that I have some colors updating right up top, and that's exactly how the rest of my student bubbles are going to appear. As my students answer, I'm going to be getting those answers for them. So for example, if I get an incorrect answer, I'm going to be able to quickly see which student provided me an incorrect answer right from my view responses screen here. And if I want to send feedback to those students, I can do that all in one place, because by clicking on that student's answer, I can come in and I can adjust the score, or you can see this handy little type feedback option here. Again, with that rich text option, if you'd like to enhance it with any kind of other multimedia materials. If I say, for example, go back and review, you need to subtract 5 from each side. I can then send that message to my student. So they're going to get that private message from me. It's going to alert them from that little notifications bell right there that their teacher has sent them a piece of feedback that they can then either respond to, or they can go ahead and make those adjustments and corrections in their formative so you can address learning gaps before they happen. A couple pieces before I leave you all today is if you have any questions, by clicking on that question mark up top, you're going to see a search for articles section. So if you maybe saw that we had some video options within Formative and you're a little curious about what that is, you can search video and it's going to bring you to our Help Center with lots of articles right there. Or you can go ahead and join our Help Center to connect with other teachers, our community center. Our training center has a lot of resources for getting started. You can also request a feature. If maybe there's something we don't do that you would like us to do, you can request it from the features request. Or if there is an issue going on that you need a little bit more help on, you can always click Contact Formative Support right here to be brought to our Formative Support Center to chat with a real person. All right, thank you so much, everyone. I don't see any questions coming into the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and close our Zoom here. Have a wonderful day. And if you have any questions, our team is right there at that Contact Formative Support button from the question mark. Thank you, everyone.